Thank you for coming on a Friday morning to listen to me. I'm very honored to be here. And I appreciate that some sound meditation. I usually open with a guided meditation myself from my book. So if you'll indulge me, we're going to continue with the Zen theme. And I'm going to read to you a passage from my book called Visualizing the Space Between, which is the theme of today's presentation or talk or conversation. Visualizing the space between. There's a moment in every story where growth demands letting go. Between every chapter, there's a pause, an invisible space where transformation quietly takes root. Here, in this space, is where life and death meet, where endings become beginnings. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Exhale. Keep them closed. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast garden, the sky softly changing from day to dusk. In your hand, you hold a seed. This seed is your story, your life, filled with all the choices, experiences, and emotions that have shaped you. As you walk through the garden, feel the earth beneath your feet. Find a quiet space, kneel down, and push the seed into the soil. In this act of planting, you are letting go of the past while allowing transformation to quietly take root. Every twist, every turn has been a part of your journey towards something greater. As you cover the seed with soil, imagine all the moments you've outgrown, both the memories you cherish and those you're ready to release. Let them sink gently into the ground. Now picture the seed breaking open and sprouting. A new beginning unfolding before you. With each breath, you are growing stronger, lighter, and more resilient. In this space between, you are rising, ready to embrace the next chapter of your life with courage and clarity. You may open your eyes. Welcome back. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you for going on that journey with me. I've lived a lot in the in-between space. And today I'll share how my journey through the in-between space and embracing the unknown and the newness of life have been the cornerstone of the work that I've done, and finally, the culmination of all the things that I've learned into Plant Your Life Planner. You see, 3 years ago, I left a successful, award-winning construction company to write a book. 3 years ago, I stepped on stage for the very first time and shared my poetry. 3 years ago, I had no idea that the book I was going to write was going to be called Plant Your Life Planner, much less that I would be hosting a poetry program monthly and host and curated and invite musicians. Those things were not part of the answers yet. But I knew I wanted more. I knew I wanted more, and I knew I needed to return to a promise I made myself when I was 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, I came to the United States from Nicaragua, where up to that point, I had lived an incredibly privileged life with art. My grandmother was a well-known artist, my father was a well-known musician, and my life was filled with wonder and awe and inspiration, and going to parks and going to my grandmother's art studio where I played the model, and people drew me, and I went to parks with her and watched her paint for hours, and that was my life. I just assumed, as a young person does, that this was normal, that this was what everyone's life was like. But then at 11 years old, my mom, a single mother with 2 older brothers, we came to the United States, and everything that I knew was no longer true. And at 11, the world opened up for me in ways that I could have never imagined. No one knew who I was. No one knew my family. There was no legacy. There was no name. There was no privilege. We were living 4 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment in Miami. And I had the absolute privilege of being the youngest and being able to attend school, because my older brothers were older and they had to work. And so my entire family was working to support us as an immigrant family. And I took my job very seriously. I didn't care so much before about school, but suddenly school became incredibly important. And 2 things became very clear to me. I needed to be the best student I could possibly be, get a scholarship, go to college, get a degree, so that I could afford a life of independence and financial freedom. At the same time, I realized that art was not going to be the catalyst for that I could not indulge myself in art. It felt too self-indulgent, too impractical, and frankly, there were no resources for someone like me at the time. I didn't know if anything existed. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the language. So I made the decision to tuck those pursuits away to the more private sides of myself and began to become the best student I could become. I learned English within 3 months. My family gained citizenship through my grandfather, who was here and was a citizen. So we had our papers. I embarked on a journey of becoming a student and getting a scholarship. So I did. I got a scholarship. I went to Nova Southeastern University, go Sharks, and I graduated with a degree in psychology. At the time, I was also working a couple of jobs to make ends meet and to save up, because my next goal was to own a house. I wanted to own my own property and live that, independent financial life that I was craving. And so I worked very hard. I got picked up by the law firm that I was moonlighting for, and they offered me a position to build their business. We started with 1 office, and by the time I left them with 9. So we catered to the Spanish-speaking audience, and because that was my first language, I became the public relations person. I was on TV, billboards, radio stations, all in Spanish-speaking media. I was at events. I traveled all over the state of Florida and Georgia representing the company and building them from 1 office to 9. I did that all throughout my 20s. So I became really good at it. I became really good at building things. I learned a lot during those formative years, 5 to 7 years of nonstop building a business from scratch and going into communities and building communities and doing so in an organic and sustainable ways. So the plant framework started to form there. I began to see patterns that emerged that worked. Customer service wasn't enough for me. I wanted to build relationships with vendors, with communities, understand where my people gathered. So I would go to the supermarket. In whatever city I was going to, I would go to the Latin supermarket and I would find out what radio stations do they listen to? What do they like? Where do they like to eat? Where do they like to commune? What are their hopes and dreams? And how could we become a partner for them? Because that was my intention. And I did that everywhere I went. So I became very good at it. But something happened towards when I was 28 years old. So I've been doing this for 7 years. And my health began to falter. I started to lose my hair. I was losing ridiculous amounts of weight. My vision started to have problems. And I had to take a step back and take a look at why this was happening. I had neglected a very important part of myself. I've become a workaholic. I'd become obsessed with building, so much so that I had neglected my physicality. I neglected my body. I wasn't checking in with myself. And by the time I realized it, my relationships were terrible. I hardly saw my family. I was with a boyfriend I didn't even know and I shouldn't have been with. And so I stopped. I said, thank you for this beautiful opportunity. They offered me, I said I was leaving and they offered me to pay for law school and all these things. And my heart just wasn't there. I knew that I had to go. And so I went as far as I could possibly go. I went to Sydney, Australia, because I knew if I stayed here, it was too much temptation for me because it would offer me the sun, the moon, and the stars. And I threw away my phone. I was on call before that for 7 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I worked 80 hours a week. I flew to a different city every week. So I went from that to moving to a new city, an in-between space, recalibrating, checking in with myself and saying, okay, Stella, you achieved a lot, but you messed up. You neglected yourself in such a terrible way. And now we have to get back to health. So the nurturing yourself and the taking care of yourself came from that experience. So I said, okay. I took a few months. I worked over there. I got a job and doing something very non-threatening to the workaholic in me. It was very easy. It was driving to different areas. And then I came back home and I was working on different projects and helping individuals with their dreams and, where do you want to go? It was easy for me because I'd done it. And once you do it and you become good at it, you can replicate it. You know what works. So someone I knew from my childhood came and invited me to dinner. I said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm helping this person and I'm consulting and, I don't know yet what I want to do, but I know that I want something bigger. I said, well, why don't we partner? I'm looking to take my company to the next level. It was a construction company. I said, what do I know about construction? I don't know anything about construction. I said, well, what did you know about law? I said, okay, let me think about it. I gave him 3 months. I researched the industry. I did what I had done for the law firm, and I saw a lot of parallels. I saw a lot of things that I could bring to the table. And then I said, okay, I will do this, but with one condition. I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. I said, I'll only do it if I am majority owner of the company because I'm going to invest. He had been doing this for 10 years. He didn't have a name. He didn't have a brand. He was just somebody who did construction and was good at it, but didn't have the structure, didn't have organization. And I was going to cash out my savings and I was going to invest in the infrastructure that needed to take it to the next level. And he said, I wouldn't have it any other way. So I became majority owner, cashed out my savings, invested, and went all in on his dream to build and grow the construction company from residential to commercial. I began to win awards. I wrote for publications. I became well known in the industry. There wasn't a single trade publication that I didn't write for, that I didn't build relationships with, that I wasn't a part of, because I was the youngest, the only female, and probably the only Latin person at a lot of these big tables. And I wanted to be there because if I was going to do it, I was going to go all in. In the middle of that, I realized that something was missing. I had accomplished a lot. We had won all the awards you could win. I was published in every publication. We were doing well on paper. Again, I was checking all the boxes, but something was missing, and I didn't know what it was. So I started Bloom by Stella in 2017 with the idea that I would help in a different capacity. I didn't have to be in the business, that I could share the plant framework, which by that time was fully developed, and help individuals with their goals. And so I did that. I started Bloom by Stella. I started taking on clients here and there. And I loved it. I loved it. And I named it Bloom because I knew what happened when you aligned all your values with your actions. Something beautiful happens. Your life flourishes. When you move with intention, your relationships are better. You're happier. Somebody cuts you off on the street. You're not so angry. You're like, oh, maybe they're in a rush because of something. It has nothing to do with you because you have a purpose. You're moving through with intention. So your life blooms. Your relationships bloom. You're happier. Even through the hardships, they're not so hard when you're doing the thing that you love, the thing that makes you happy. But it wasn't enough. There was a part of me that was still missing. There was a part of me that didn't sit well. And so in 2018, 2020, I came across a piece of knowledge that changed everything. And maybe some of you know it. It's the top 5 regrets of the dying. Has anybody heard of that book? You've heard of it? Okay, so you know what's coming. The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying is a book that was written by an Australian hospice nurse that basically gained a lot of knowledge through the process of helping people transition from life to death. Can anyone guess, who hasn't read the book, what the number 1 regret of people who are on their way out is? That's a very good one.
What?
Spending more time with family. That's a good one. It's not the number 1 regret.
Not taking risks.
Very close. Anyone else?
Didn't say I love you enough.
That's one of them, but it's not the number 1. And I want to read it verbatim because I think her words are pretty much on point. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And it struck me for two very important reasons. One, because I knew the work that I was already doing with Bloom by Stella was on mission. So I was very happy that my mission was part of a larger collective improvement on people's lives, that we were aligning ourselves with the right message. But there was a part of me that was like, I don't feel like I am doing that. I don't feel like I am doing the thing that I really want to do. And I didn't know what it was yet. Fast forward to 2022. I had the gumption and the courage to get back to that in-between space of not knowing, to relish in the newness of life and be okay with not knowing. And I left the company that I'd built, very successful company. People looked at me like I had three heads because they were like, why are you doing this? Where are you going? What are you gonna do? The people closest to me knew, but I didn't know yet. And so I began to explore my possibilities, what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to write a book. I just didn't know what book yet. And I sat with that for a while, and I was writing a completely different book, a collection of poetry on life and death, because I love the idea that death whispers to us, live, live, live. That's a Spanish poet. I forget his name. And so I was writing a book on life and death when a friend tapped me on the shoulder and said, Stella, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go from here. I said, I got you. I got just the thing for you. And I began to put together the first iteration of the Plant Your Life Planner. I put everything that I had done for companies, for individuals who had a dream, but because I loved her, and I knew her, and I knew that she'd appreciate it, I embedded my poetry throughout the book. In between the exercises, in between the questions, in between the reflections, I also put my photography in there. And by the end of it, I knew it was the book that I needed to pursue. I knew that being of service and combining all of the parts of me felt the most aligned that I had ever felt. For the first time, I wasn't building someone else's dream. I wasn't following someone else's path. I was following my own, and at the same time being of service, which was possibly the best gift I could give myself. And Plant Your Life Planner was born. What does Plant Your Life Planner stand for? You mentioned it at the beginning. So Plant Your Life Planner stands for prioritize your values and intentions. What really matters to you? At the end of your life, what do you want to be remembered as? What, if you cut through the noise of what your expectations are, or maybe your perceived expectations of what's expected of you, whether from a loved one, a family member, your partner, society as a whole, none of that matters. What matters is what's in your heart, what you feel the most alive doing. What are your values? If your values are community, like Evan, he's a great example of someone who prioritizes their values through their actions. So prioritize your intentions. Get very clear on what matters to you and why. So there's exercises there to help you uncover that if you don't know, or reevaluate them if you don't know. The next letter is L, learn new skills. Be excited for the newness of life. Be okay at sucking at something new. I did that when I decided to become a publisher so I could publish my book. I didn't want to hand this project over to anyone else. It was very close and dear to my heart. And the idea of giving up creative freedom, the idea of giving up some of the non-negotiables that I wanted in the book was just not possible. So I learned how to become a publisher. The next part of that is act. Action is very important. It's not enough to hope and wish or write things down. You have to show up for yourself. And the actions that I mean are the actions that no one sees. The seemingly insignificant details of your life where you decide to show up for yourself or not. Where you decide to take your vitamins in the morning. No one knows whether you took them or not, but you know. Those seemingly insignificant details of life, showing up consistently for your dreams and having them at the forefront of everything that you do, moving through the world with the intention of presence and of being alive and being accountable to your intentions. So that is A. Then comes N, community. Nurture your relationships. I met Enid, who's here today, and I want to give her her flowers. She designed my book from cover to back. I met her 6 years ago at her Raw storytelling event. And I knew from the moment I met her that we'd end up working together. I didn't know in what capacity, but I began referring some of my clients to her. And I knew I was inspired by her. I knew that I loved her work. And I always said to her, the moment that I decide to do the thing, whatever the thing is, you're going to be my person. I didn't talk to anyone else. I nurtured that relationship because I was inspired by her and I knew that we could do beautiful things together, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. I gave her instructions on what I visualized and she somehow blew it out of the park. So this is Plant Your Life Planner, designed by Enid of Raw Made from cover to back. One of my non-negotiables, which is partly the reason I became a publisher, is that I wanted the book to have a wildflower seeded page inside the book so that you can literally plant your dreams if you wanted to. But it's a beautiful, it's more than the physicality of it, is more of a reminder that life blooms when we tend to the things we care about. So that's this page over here. So I found the manufacturer, I sourced the materials, went back and forth and found someone who printed it exactly how I wanted it. So that's that. Nurture your relationships. Align yourself with people who inspire you, who bring out the best in you, who make you feel good about your dreams. And finally, and certainly not least, the very hard lesson I learned in my 20s, take care of yourself. And we live in a world where self-care has been hijacked by corporations. They now want to sell us self-care in the whatever, in a bathtub or a massage, which all are wonderful things and they can do wonderful things. But if you have an 800-pound gorilla sitting on your chest that's causing you anxiety, none of that is going to alleviate it. What's going to alleviate it is nurturing your soul and taking care of the things that matter. There's many experts that will tell you you need to drink 2 gallons of water a day or sleep 8 hours of sleep or take whatever supplements, but your body knows when you tap into it what feels good, how you feel the next day when you sleep those 8 hours or 6. You know it's different for every person. So my book allows you to tap into your own wisdom. It's the anti-hustle planner. It's a planner for dreamers, for you to feel connected to yourself in every possible way. So taking care of yourself, taking care of your soul, reading the books for pleasure. That's like unheard of now. We have to read all these self-help books. We have to read how to improve yourself, how to be better. I love fantasy fiction. And no one can take away that pleasure from me because I walk every day and I read my fantasy fiction and it's so nourishing for me. So whatever the thing is for you, be intentional about it. And that's Plant Your Life Planner. And I think we're coming towards the end of the talk. And I want to share one of the last poems I wrote that kind of summarizes what we talked about today, the conversation about following your dreams. This is called Your Life, Your Story. Imagine reading a book you absolutely loved, where each page unfolded imaginatively with characters so compelling, a plot you never saw coming, twists and turns to keep you guessing. Now imagine you could never go back to the previous page and you couldn't look at the next until you finished what you were reading. Would you pay close attention? Would you hold on to every single word? Would you try to guess the next twist or linger on the last one? And what if? What if this book was your life? Each page building on the last, the more you live, the thicker it gets. And you don't see the full story. It unfolds slowly. Maybe you hold on to vague memories because they give you the comfort and the illusion of control. But it was never about the big story. It was always about the small, seemingly insignificant details, the mundane acts of everyday choices that seemed irrelevant, those hidden daily naked truths. the ones only you knew. And then there were the bigger choices: who you spent time with, how you spoke to others, and most importantly, how you spoke to yourself. Those were the words on the pages that mattered most, the ones that build character, your character. Thank you very much. That concludes the official talk. I'm very grateful for you for allowing me to share my story. I brought a small gift for you. This is one of my poems on a seated page. I invite you to write an intention. I'm going to pass this around to everybody. And there are some pens. And I'm going to invite you to think about, what seed can you plant today? What is something that you can plant today that your future self will be grateful for? That you can tend with care, either tomorrow or the next day or the next day, or maybe even 3 years from now. Thank you for being a wonderful audience.
Awesome. Any questions for our speaker?
How much is your car?
Oh, my planner is $64.99 plus tax. I'm sorry? It can be ordered online. I ship all over the world. I purposely did not put my book on any other platform but my own, and through my events and through my own website, bloombystella.com, because this is my passion, this is my art, and I don't want to give money away to Amazon. So you can find me at events. My handles are at Wild Bloom Poetry for my poetry series, which has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, where I help other poets come together. I bring music, jazz. It is the third Wednesday of every month. I bring in a local poet that's promoting a book, and we give them the space to share and sell their books and sell their art. And then we open up the mic for whether it's your first time or your 100th time, or people who just want to listen. It's called Wild Bloom Poetry, and it's at Emily's Garden in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So I invite you all to come. The next one, it's in English. I plan to do a Spanish version in the future. For now, it is in English. I haven't had too many people approach me with Spanish, but stay tuned for that. Again, it's the third Wednesday of every month. So the next one will be next week on the 15th, and it is spooky autumn themed. And we have a brilliant poet who just published an anthology with a variety of Miami poets, myself included, South Florida poets, who are in the book, and it's called The Spell Jar, Volume 4. So we'll have that there. I invite you all to come.
Stella, can I see one of your books?
Absolutely.
That's fabulous.
The prompt is, what seed can you plant today that your future self will be grateful for? Or what gift can you give yourself today that your future self will be thankful for? I ask myself that question every day. That's how I move through the day. It's the beginning of my day is, what gift can I give myself? What is a priority? How can I move with intention? And again, maybe tomorrow you'll see the fruits of that, or maybe the next day, maybe a week, or maybe 3 years from now.
Amazing.
Yes.
On a personal note, when you embarked on these with the attorneys and then the construction, where did you get the courage to move forward?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. I've lived with death my whole life, meaning that I've known how precious life is. I lost my nephew that was only 1.5 years old when I was a senior in high school. And that really impacted me as a human, as a family member. I then lost my older brother a few years later. And so the courage comes from the absolute certainty that my time here is very limited, and that I want to do the most I can with the time I have. So thank you for asking that question.
That was a good one. Do the most you can with the time you have. I'm gonna write it down.
And you know, one thing I use as well is a reframe. So language, I love language, and language is so important. And so a lot of times we are bombarded with language that lends itself for negativity. For example, there's a lot of people who are afraid of the unknown. I took that back and gave it the power that I wanted. And instead of being afraid of the unknown, I am excited for the newness of life. I am excited for what's to come. I am excited to be new at something, to suck at something, because at the end of the day, 100 years from now, none of that matters. 100 years from now, what I did today won't matter to anyone else other than me. So I move through the world with that presence and with that knowledge and with that anchoring me.
Is anybody not familiar with reframing? There's this term, like, somebody says, oh, I can't do that. Well, really, you can't do that? Or maybe you can't do that right this second. Or you don't feel like doing it right now, but you can do it later. And when you really start making these subtle little mindset shifts and reframe the situation, anything is, literally, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
People come to this country with nothing and are able to build a life and business and friends.
We know that.
And family, right? And,
For sure.
Amen.
And she's built an amazing life, an amazing community, amazing set of friends, amazing business, amazing planner. It is possible. There is help out there. There's people like Enid. There's different communities. Enid and I are part of a goal-setting accountability mini mastermind group called Axen Club, Action and Zen, AXEN. We meet every first Tuesday night of the month for free. You can come with a goal, idea, a startup, a passion project, or none of those things. We will help you accelerate and insulate and literally bring that to life through the smarting your goals framework. Make specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-driven with a time constraint. And if you don't do those things between that meeting and the next meeting, nobody's pointing their finger at you saying you didn't do those. But we've literally helped so many people, including our hosts, get their venue and their art studio and launch businesses and meet friends and start relationships and all these things. Me and my brother Robert here are part of a Conscious Weekly Men's group called Weekly Men's Circle, where we meet weekly. I've been doing it for the last 3 years. It's like therapy. It's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. We're there to support each other, show up for each other. We're thankfully going on our annual retreat today. And there is help. There is community. There are people. Timothy Mark Davis here is a phenomenal arts advocate. He's going to be one of our upcoming speakers here. He's done amazing things for actors and playwrights and people in the performing arts. So there is community, there is resources, and anything really is possible. So I really appreciate you for sharing that and reminding us of that. I'm going to be picking up a copy and bringing it to the retreat, which I'm really excited actually to integrate immediately.
Thank you so much.
And if there aren't any additional questions, we'll wrap up with the selfie with the speaker.
Thank you.